Hey, I'm sorry. It's on the phone. Hey, y'all. I'm so sorry that I've been absent from what I do for so very long. But I did want to come back to you guys. And I'm streaming live right now from South America, actually. But I just had to come back and do this next part. I woke up and I realized, like, I haven't talked to my YouTube people in so long. So I'm here in Colombia, and it is absolutely beautiful. Been staying in Medellin, and I mean, it's nothing more I could ask for. But I woke up today and was like, I owe them the Richard Wright portion of the Black Men in Literature series, and I just had to come in and give you that today. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So Richard Wright composes a memoir in which he provides readers an avenue in order to attain freedom. Born in the southern region of the United States, Wright endured a much more sinister view of racial dynamics, one in which death was a real and obvious penalty for any crime committed by a person of African American descent. In his memoir, Black Boy, published in 1945, Wright illustrates that life in the South for an African American man was a matter of life and death, between principles and survival. In order to make it through, Wright had asked that African American people stay hungry. Wright writes that hunger, as long as he could remember, was always at my elbow. Hunger, for Wright, acted as a motivating force that helped him escape the crashing weight of Jim Crow laws and second-class personhood. Wright began to drive that issue home when he is sent to the store with the grocery money. On the way, he is beaten and robbed by the neighborhood boys. Wright looks for his mother to protect him, and she whips him instead. Wright is forced to face the boys in the neighborhood, or the family will be unable to eat. In this instance, Wright is forced to decide between his fear and his hunger. Later in Wright's life, he will face issues like this once again after moving back to Mississippi. Wright practiced self-induced fasting. Sustenance took the shape of 2 meals 12 hours apart. Skipping lunch at school became because he was poor, and then refusing to go home so that he may explore the neighborhood of his youth. Once Wright reaches adulthood, he relies on his hunger to free him from the politics of Jim Crow laws. Desperate to attain freedom for himself and his mother, Wright grew accustomed to feeding himself nothing but beans from a can in order to save money or to move north. Hunger became a consoling force for Wright in many ways, and his constant presence helped to motivate him to aspire for greater opportunities. However, food is not all in which Wright craved and hungered for. A hunger for knowledge also led him to freedom in which he yearned. Wright states, at the age of 12, I had an attitude toward life that was to make me skeptical of everything while seeking everything, tolerant of all, and yet critical. That could only keep alive in me the enthralling sense of wonder and awe in the face of the drama of human feeling, which is hidden by the external drama of life. People, y'all. And I lost my place. And it is Wright's skepticism that enabled him to be such a successful student. Left out of school much of his life, Wright taught himself to count and read and write by devouring any materials he could reach in a household that strictly forbade books. Wright's yearning for knowledge propelled him to valedictorian status at his small hometown, first illuminating him to the wonderful benefits of education can render. As an adult, Wright never lost his yearning for knowledge. He meets a Catholic man and negotiates the use of his library card so that he may have access to the world's knowledge. In doing so, Wright is forced to feign ignorance, writing insulting messages regarding African Americans in order to trick the librarian to believe the books were for the Catholic man and not him, an African American, because in this time it will still considered dangerous for an African American to read. Wright acquired a copy of H.L. Mencken's A Book of Prefaces, The work of Mencken reminds him that he has an imagination and that his imagination is hungry. After reading it, Wright feels renewed, stating, "I concluded the book with conviction that I had somehow overlooked something terribly important in life. I had once tried to write, had once reveled in a feeling, had let my crude imagination roam, but the impulse to dream had been slowly beaten out of me by experience. Now it surged up again, and I hungered for books, new ways of looking and seeing. An unquenchable thirst for knowledge gave Wright the tools to question everything and to challenge old, antiquated ideologies regarding life as an African American. A hunger for justice was developed in Wright, unseen by many in his time. Wright was unable to acquiesce to any expectation that didn't make sense to him. He yearned for justice and respect from all individuals he encountered. This began early in his memoir, when Richard kills a crying kitten in his yard. Unable to quiet it, and spiting his father's misspoken words, Richard hangs the cat by a tree, barely escaping a physical whipping. Wright is ordered to bury the cat by his mother, an action that implies that all lives are required to be treated just and fairly. Even the life of a kitten must be honored with a proper burial. In burying this cat, Wright becomes terrified of the act that he has committed. His lack of compassion haunts him in his dreams. From the moment Wright becomes an advocate for social justices and is moved to protect himself by any means necessary. In a misunderstanding with his aunt, Wright is wrongly accused of misbehaving in school. Wright denies involvement, but following street ethics, refuses to give up the culprit. Wright chose whether to reveal the culprit or be whipped in his place. Wright eventually chooses to reveal the guilty student, only to see another punishment for not telling sooner. Wright finds his decision to be unjust and refuses to participate in the punishment. His aunt begins to threaten him with physical violence, and Wright protects himself with a kitchen knife. Determined not to be punished for a crime he did not commit, he holds the weapon at the bay to avoid attack. In this moment, Wright's hunger for justice is so strong he is willing to stab his own aunt. Take a sip of water, y'all. How cute is this cup? Sorry. When preparing for graduation, Wright is again tested by his moral principles. As valedictorian, he is expected to write and perform a speech for the graduating class. He learned, only days before the ceremony, that the school's principal had already written a speech for him. Wright, on charges of principality, refused to read a speech written by someone else. The principal tries to behoove him, promising him a job as a teacher or funding to further his education. Wright denies both. And when approached by his uncle, who insisted that the principal's speech was better written and that Wright should read it, Wright responds that he did not write it. Yet another example of Wright's keen sense of just actions and principles, values that Wright places above the worldly values that are offered by society. Readers witness this again in Wright while working. Wright uncovers a scheme devised by his boss to make him fight another African American employee. While that's happening, I'm having another sip. Everything is beeping. Oh my God. I got the crack of dawn so that I wouldn't have to deal with this, but here we are. Okay. While working, Wright undercovered a scheme devised by his boss to make him fight another African-American employee. He instructed that the man is waiting to stab him with a knife because he has heard Wright whispering bad things about him. Wright insisted this is a misunderstanding and talks to the man, even though his vice advises him otherwise. The young men later find out that the boss has lied and only want to have boys fight each other for entertainment. They are offered payment of $5. Wright tries to refuse the money, uncomfortable having been treated like a source of entertainment for white audiences. However, his co-worker is insistent, willing to trade his values of justice and honor for a new suit from the store. Wright is willing to forgo all the worldly pleasures he encounters if it means that he can acquire freedom from racial discrimination within the United States of America. It is Wright's hunger for justice and personhood that eventually allowed him to live the life of a free man. Okay, so hopefully this is like super legible and you guys could hear me throughout. I'm gonna play it back, and if not, I'm gonna have to recast it. But that was the second edition to Black Man in Literature, focusing on Richard Wright. And I'm sorry that it was a little bit late. Like I told you guys, I've been traveling and I am currently in Medellin. It's absolutely stunning here. But I'll be back in a quieter zone for the third and last entry of this work. It is about Tennessee Coast. So make sure that you comment, like, subscribe. As always, you know I love having you guys a part of this channel, and it means the world to me. And yes, you're right, this is what a morning should look like in America. It's so beautiful, y'all. So I hope y'all got to hear the birds and not all of the trucks. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys next time.